What if your favorite Golden Age heartthrobs smelled so bad that leading ladies refused to kiss them? Behind Hollywood's glamorous facade lurked some truly revolting personal habits that would make you rethink every romantic scene you've ever swooned over. Clark Gable. Clark Gable might have been the undisputed king of Hollywood, but his breath was absolutely royal in all the wrong ways. By age 32, this supposed dreamboat had nearly a full set of dentures after suffering from severe gum disease that destroyed his natural teeth. The ill-fitting dental work gave him breath so toxic that it became legendary throughout Tinseltown. Vivian Leigh, his Gone with the Wind co-star, reportedly dreaded their romantic scenes together. The British beauty would position herself strategically during takes to avoid the full blast of Gable's putrid exhalations. Sophia Loren later confirmed the horror, admitting she kept her distance between takes while filming It Started in Naples. The Italian bombshell, known for her own impeccable grooming, was genuinely repulsed by America's supposed heartthrob. What made matters worse was Gable's stubborn refusal to use mouthwash or breath mints, believing they would somehow affect his acting performance. Crew members on The Misfits, his final film, recalled that his dental problems had worsened to the point where the smell was noticeable from several feet away. Yet his star power remained so immense that no director dared confront him directly about his revolting oral hygiene. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his raw, naturalistic performances, but he also revolutionized how bad a major star could smell on set. As Brando aged and his weight ballooned, his casual attitude toward personal cleanliness became a nightmare for everyone around him. The man who made audiences swoon in A Streetcar Named Desire would later clear entire rooms with his pungent body odor. During the filming of Apocalypse Now, director Francis Ford Coppola and the crew had to contend not just with Brando's creative demands, but also with the practical challenge of shooting scenes with an actor whose personal odor was described as overwhelming. Makeup artists reportedly struggled to work closely with him, requiring frequent breaks to step outside for fresh air. Brando's poor hygiene appeared to be at least partially intentional, representing his rejection of Hollywood's artificial standards and expectations. Even during his early career breakthrough in A Streetcar Named Desire, director Elia Kazan had to repeatedly ask him to bathe more frequently. His co-star Vivian Leigh was reportedly disturbed by his body odor during their intimate scenes together, making their already intense performances even more challenging to film. The tragic irony was that Brando's natural musk actually enhanced some of his most famous roles, particularly Stanley Kowalski's sweaty, animalistic character. But what worked for one iconic performance became a consistent problem that plagued his later career and personal relationships. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford built her entire public image around obsessive cleanliness and perfectionism, scrubbing her face raw and maintaining immaculate wardrobes. But Hollywood insiders whispered about a shocking contradiction in her personal habits that completely undermined her pristine reputation. Despite her fanatical attention to most aspects of grooming, Crawford reportedly had one disgusting habit that co-stars found absolutely revolting. Multiple sources claimed that Crawford rarely changed her undergarments, wearing the same pieces multiple times before finally washing them. Given the demanding nature of Hollywood film sets, where actors spent long hours under scorching studio lights, this habit created an unpleasant presence that colleagues found impossible to ignore. The woman who demanded spotless homes and rigorous personal grooming from everyone around her apparently didn't apply the same standards to her most intimate clothing. This contradiction became one of Hollywood's most whispered scandals, with insiders noting the irony of Crawford's public obsession with cleanliness versus her private lapses in basic hygiene. Costume designers and makeup artists who worked closely with her developed diplomatic ways to address the situation without directly confronting the notoriously temperamental star. The revelation added another layer to Crawford's already complex public persona, showing how even the most carefully crafted Hollywood images could conceal embarrassing personal truths. Her later rivalry with Bette Davis took on new dimensions when considering that both actresses had their own unique hygiene challenges. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart's distinctive voice and tough guy persona made him one of Hollywood's most iconic leading men. but his legendary smoking and drinking habits created breath so foul that romantic scenes became ordeals for his leading ladies. The man who delivered some of cinema's most memorable lines was also delivering some of its most offensive odors directly into his co-stars' faces. Bogart's chain-smoking habit was legendary throughout Tinseltown. He reportedly went through 3 packs of cigarettes daily, often lighting a new one from the ember of the previous one. Combined with his regular whiskey consumption and minimal attention to dental care, the result was breath that made close-up scenes particularly challenging for actresses working opposite him. Ingrid Bergman, his Casablanca co-star, allegedly asked director Michael Curtis to minimize close-ups that required her to stand directly in the path of Bogart's exhalations. Their iconic final scene at the airport, with its famously restrained farewell, might have been more passionate if Bergman hadn't been contending with Bogart's toxic breath combination of cigarettes, alcohol, and dental neglect. Lauren Bacall, who became Bogart's 4th wife after meeting him on the set of To Have and Have Not, was reportedly one of the few women who didn't recoil from his breath. Their genuine attraction apparently overcame what other actresses considered a significant obstacle to romantic chemistry on screen. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow captivated audiences as Hollywood's original platinum blonde bombshell, but behind her glamorous silver screen image lay hygiene habits that were far less dazzling than her carefully crafted public persona. The actress who defined 1930s sex appeal reportedly had a surprisingly casual approach to personal cleanliness that shocked co-stars and crew members. Despite her stunning appearance and carefully maintained platinum hair, Harlow was known to bathe infrequently and had little concern for body odor. Co-stars and crew members who worked closely with her often noticed her strong personal scent, especially during long filming days under hot studio lights. The contrast between her polished on-screen appearance and her off-screen hygiene habits became one of Hollywood's most closely guarded secrets. What made Harlow's situation particularly striking was how it contradicted everything audiences believed about their glamorous screen goddess. While Hollywood studios went to extraordinary lengths to maintain her flawless image through careful lighting, makeup, and costuming, those who interacted with her up close experienced a very different reality. The tragic irony was that Harlow's natural charisma and undeniable screen presence allowed her to maintain her status as a beloved star despite her hygiene issues. Her untimely death at just 26 years old meant that many of these unflattering details remained Hollywood secrets for decades, preserving her legendary status while hiding the less glamorous truth about her personal habits. Charles Laughton. Charles Laughton delivered powerhouse performances in classics like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Mutiny on the Bounty, but his commanding screen presence couldn't mask the overwhelming body odor that made working with him a genuine endurance test for cast and crew. The esteemed British actor developed a reputation for being spectacularly unkempt, turning film sets into olfactory nightmares. Laughton's reluctance to bathe regularly was legendary throughout Hollywood. Unlike his meticulously groomed contemporaries, he often went days without washing, creating a strong and unpleasant odor that was impossible to ignore. Actors and crew members who had to work closely with him, especially during physically demanding scenes, found his body odor genuinely overwhelming. His oral hygiene was equally problematic, with chronic bad breath that made dialogue-heavy scenes particularly challenging for his co-stars. Whether due to dental neglect or dietary habits, Laughton's foul breath became another factor that made working alongside him a less than pleasant experience for everyone involved. The most remarkable aspect of Laughton's hygiene issues was how his extraordinary talent managed to overshadow these personal shortcomings. Directors and co-stars might have privately complained about the difficulties of working with him, but they couldn't deny his incredible acting abilities. His legacy in cinema is defined by his unforgettable performances rather than his lack of cleanliness, proving that sometimes even the most unpleasant personal habits can be overlooked when faced with undeniable artistic brilliance. Bette Davis. Bette Davis commanded respect as one of Hollywood's most formidable actresses, but her heavy smoking habit created a persistent cloud of tobacco stench that made intimate scenes challenging for her romantic co-stars. The woman who delivered some of cinema's most powerful performances was also delivering some of its most offensive odors through her cigarette-saturated breath and clothing. Davis was rarely seen without a cigarette dangling from her lips, and the constant exposure to tobacco left a lasting effect on everything about her. Her breath carried the strong, lingering scent of smoke, while her clothing absorbed the odor so thoroughly that it became nearly impossible to ignore during close-up scenes and romantic moments. Co-stars who worked opposite Davis in love scenes found her smoking habit particularly off-putting, though few dared to confront the strong-willed actress about it. The contrast between her commanding screen presence and her tobacco-tainted personal presence created an uncomfortable dynamic that many colleagues had to simply endure. Beyond the smoking, Davis was reportedly not overly concerned with regular bathing, unlike some of her contemporaries who followed meticulous beauty and hygiene routines. This casual approach to cleanliness was noticeable to those around her, adding another layer to the olfactory challenges of working closely with one of Hollywood's most demanding and talented performers. Despite these hygiene issues, Davis remained at the pinnacle of Hollywood's elite throughout her career, proving that exceptional talent could overcome even the most unpleasant personal habits when it came to maintaining star status. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy was celebrated for his natural acting ability and powerful screen presence, but his heavy drinking created breath so foul that romantic scenes became endurance tests for his leading ladies. The man who brought depth and humanity to every role was also bringing the overpowering stench of whiskey and cigars to every intimate moment on screen. Tracy's love for strong drinks, particularly whiskey, contributed to a lingering alcoholic odor that was difficult to ignore during close contact scenes. Additionally, his habit of smoking cigars only worsened the problem, creating a combination of alcohol and tobacco that left his breath with a strong, unpleasant scent that was immediately noticeable to anyone working closely with him. The irony was particularly striking, given Tracy's reputation as one of Hollywood's most professional and dedicated actors. While he was admired for his acting abilities and his talent for bringing emotional depth to every role, the practical reality of filming intimate scenes with him was far from enjoyable for his co-stars. Despite this personal hygiene drawback, Tracy's commanding presence and undeniable talent ensured that complaints were kept to a minimum. Directors and fellow actors respected his craft too much to let his breath issues overshadow his contributions to their films. Tracy's skill and charisma allowed him to maintain his status as one of Hollywood's most enduring leading men, proving that exceptional acting ability could overcome even the most offensive personal habits when it came to career longevity and professional respect. John Barrymore. John Barrymore earned his nickname, the Great Profile, for his striking good looks and magnetic screen presence, but his notorious drinking habit created breath so offensive that it became infamous among Hollywood insiders. As the acclaimed actor aged, his excessive alcohol consumption and increasingly careless lifestyle began taking a visible and olfactory toll on his professional relationships. Barrymore's well-documented love affair with alcohol resulted in breath that became legendary for all the wrong reasons. His frequent drinking, combined with a general lack of attention to proper dental care, created a mouth odor that was genuinely difficult for co-stars to endure during romantic scenes and close dialogue exchanges. While audiences saw a dashing, charismatic leading man on screen, his colleagues had to cope with the reality of working closely with someone whose breath was genuinely revolting. Many found it challenging to perform convincing love scenes with him, though few spoke publicly about these difficulties given his status as a Hollywood icon. The tragic aspect of Barrymore's situation was how his declining personal hygiene paralleled his overall deterioration as his alcoholism progressed. The man who had once been considered one of the most attractive and talented actors of his generation gradually became someone whose personal habits made him increasingly difficult to work with. Despite his declining hygiene standards, Barrymore's theatrical legacy remained largely untarnished. His larger-than-life personality, unmatched dramatic skills, and significant contributions to both stage and screen ensured his place among the entertainment greats, even as his personal habits became increasingly problematic. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn epitomized the dashing Hollywood hero with his athletic good looks and swashbuckling roles, but his off-screen reputation as a heavy drinker and womanizer came with hygiene consequences that made working closely with him increasingly unpleasant. The star who thrilled audiences in Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood was creating much less thrilling experiences for his co-stars and crew members. Flynn's prodigious alcohol consumption had a profound impact on his body odor and breath, with colleagues reporting that his sweat reeked of alcohol by afternoon filming sessions. After drinking throughout the day, his breath became genuinely overpowering, making romantic scenes particularly challenging for his leading ladies to endure. Adding to these issues, Flynn developed a reputation for wearing the same clothes for multiple days, and sometimes even sleeping in them, creating a potent personal aroma that went far beyond simple alcohol-tinged breath. The dashing hero who scaled castle walls and engaged in sword fights on screen was, in reality, a man whose personal habits grew increasingly slovenly as his addiction progressed. As Flynn's alcoholism worsened throughout the 1940s, his hygiene deteriorated proportionally, creating practical challenges for costume departments and makeup artists who had to work in close proximity to the increasingly pungent star. The tragedy of Flynn's situation was how his personal demons gradually overshadowed his considerable talents, turning the once charming leading man into someone whose hygiene problems became as legendary as his on-screen heroics, though for entirely different and far less flattering reasons. James Dean. James Dean's brief but iconic career created an enduring image of youthful rebellion, but the reality behind his carefully cultivated bad boy persona included hygiene habits that were genuinely rebellious against basic cleanliness standards. The star who defined teenage angst in Rebel Without a Cause took his anti-establishment attitude to uncomfortable extremes when it came to personal grooming. Dean's approach to bathing was sporadic at best, and he was notorious for wearing the same clothes for days or even weeks without washing them. During filming, his casual attitude toward personal cleanliness became a source of complaints from crew members who had to work in close proximity to the increasingly aromatic young star. Director Nicholas Ray allegedly had to pull Dean aside multiple times during the production of Rebel Without a Cause to address crew complaints about his body odor. The irony was that Dean's commitment to authentic, method-style acting extended to maintaining what he considered the genuine smell of a troubled teenager. His co-star, Natalie Wood, reportedly found working with him challenging due to his hygiene issues, particularly during their romantic scenes. Like actresses who had endured similar problems with other male stars, Wood maintained her professionalism while privately struggling with the olfactory challenges of performing convincing love scenes. Dean's hygiene problems seemed to stem from a combination of rebellion against Hollywood conventions and practical issues from his early struggling days in New York, where reliable hot water wasn't always available in his cramped apartment. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's boundless energy and enthusiastic performances made him one of Hollywood's most bankable young stars, but his hyperactive lifestyle and casual approach to personal hygiene created an increasingly pungent presence that colleagues found difficult to ignore. The performer who charmed audiences in the Andy Hardy series was generating much less charm behind the scenes with his personal grooming habits. Rooney's incredible work ethic meant he was constantly in motion, whether filming, rehearsing, or performing in various entertainment venues. This high-energy lifestyle, combined with his apparent indifference to regular bathing, created a particularly potent combination of exhaustion, induced body odor, and accumulated grime. Co-stars and crew members who worked on his numerous MGM productions noted that Rooney's personal scent became more noticeable as filming days progressed, particularly during the physically demanding musical numbers and comedy sequences that required multiple takes and extensive rehearsal periods. Rooney's situation highlighted how even the most successful and beloved stars could have personal habits that created practical problems for film productions, though his professional success suggested that talent and charisma could overcome even the most aromatic obstacles. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's iconic tramp character became one of cinema's most beloved figures, but the comedian's commitment to authenticity extended to maintaining his costume in a genuinely unwashed state that created increasingly unpleasant working conditions. The outfit that charmed millions on screen was creating much less charming experiences for those who had to work closely with the comedy legend. Chaplin rarely washed or replaced his famous costume, allowing it to accumulate layers of dirt, sweat, and odors as it was worn through multiple films and countless takes of physically demanding comedy sequences. His commitment to maintaining the character's authentic appearance meant preserving the suit's increasingly grimy and smelly condition. The practical reasoning behind this decision was continuity. Since Chaplin's films were often shot over extended periods, he wanted to ensure his character's appearance remained consistent throughout the production. However, this meant that the costume absorbed weeks or months of accumulated grime and body odor. Co-stars and crew members who worked on Chaplin's productions likely noticed the increasingly unpleasant state of his costume. Though few would have dared to criticize the comedy genius about his commitment to character authenticity, even when it created olfactory challenges on set. The irony was that Chaplin's dedication to his craft, including maintaining his costume's unwashed authenticity, contributed to performances that remain beloved nearly a century later, proving that sometimes great art requires genuine sacrifice from everyone involved. W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields built his comedy career around playing lovable rogues and tipsy characters, but his off-screen drinking habits created breath and body odor that made his on-screen persona uncomfortably realistic for those working closely with him. The comedian who made audiences laugh with his portrayal of perpetually intoxicated characters was living that role more authentically than anyone realized. Fields' well-documented alcoholism meant that his breath consistently carried the strong scent of whatever he'd been drinking, which was frequently whiskey or gin throughout the filming day. His casual attitude toward bathing, combined with alcohol-tinged sweat, created a particularly pungent combination that became his signature off-screen presence. The tragic aspect of Fields' situation was how his personal demons gradually consumed both his health and his hygiene standards. What began as method acting essentially became his reality, with the line between his comedic drunk characters and his actual condition becoming increasingly blurred. Co-stars who worked opposite Fields in dialogue scenes had to contend with breath that was genuinely overwhelming, though most maintained their professionalism rather than confronting one of comedy's most successful and temperamental performers about his personal habits. Fields' legacy as a comedy pioneer remains secure despite his hygiene challenges, proving that exceptional talent and unique comedic genius could overcome even the most offensive personal characteristics when it came to entertainment value and lasting cultural impact. John Gilbert. John Gilbert ruled Hollywood during the silent era with his romantic leading man appeal, but his personal hygiene habits became increasingly problematic as his career declined with the advent of talking pictures. The star who had once been the epitome of masculine romance was struggling with personal demons that manifested in declining attention to basic cleanliness. As Gilbert's career faltered due to the transition to sound films and his high-pitched voice, his drinking increased dramatically, leading to the same breath and body odor issues that plagued many alcoholic stars of the era. The man who had once been meticulous about his appearance gradually became careless about personal grooming. The psychological toll of watching his career crumble seemed to extend to his personal habits, with colleagues noting that Gilbert's hygiene standards declined along with his professional prospects. What had once been a carefully maintained romantic image deteriorated into a sad reflection of his internal struggles. Co-stars who worked with Gilbert during his decline noted the contrast between his former glory and his increasingly unkempt appearance and odor. The tragedy was particularly poignant, given how recently he had been considered one of Hollywood's most desirable leading men. Gilbert's story became a cautionary tale about how quickly Hollywood success could disappear, with his declining hygiene serving as a visible symbol of his broader personal and professional deterioration during one of the industry's most dramatic transition periods. These Golden Age stars proved that glamour was truly just an illusion created by Hollywood's publicity machine. While we swooned over their on-screen romances, their co-stars were holding their breath for entirely different reasons. Which of these hygiene horrors shocked you most? Comment below with the star whose stench would have been your deal breaker, and tell us if you think modern audiences would have tolerated these aromatic actors or if social media would have ended their careers before they began.